Recently, even the most pro-Ukrainian Western analytical centers have begun to report serious advances by the Russian army on almost the entire line of combat contact. Even American experts from the Institute for the Study of War, who from the very beginning of this conflict quoted only the statements of the Ukrainian General Staff, began to recognize the successes of the Russian army on the battlefield. According to them, since the beginning of this month, Russian troops have made significant progress in the Avdiivka and South Donetsk directions of the front. Moreover, American military experts, to their utter regret, were also forced to recognize the significant successes of Russian troops in the southeast of Krasnogorovka. On the whole, Western military experts and analysts admit that after the fall of Avdiivka, the mechanized attacks of the Russian army increased threefold. As a result, the armed forces of Ukraine continue to rapidly lose towns and villages in the most strategically important sectors of the front. Against this background, realizing that it was impossible to stop the advance of Russian troops, the Ukrainian General Staff did not think of anything better than to create propaganda fake stories about dozens of destroyed Russian combat planes. For example, over the past few weeks, representatives of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, in all seriousness, stated that Russia has lost almost all of its Su-34 frontline supersonic fighter bombers, and A-50 airborne early warning and control planes. Moreover, even Western news channels, without verifying the authenticity of these statements by the Ukrainian side, began to convince their audience that Russia had indeed lost almost its entire air fleet. The scale and absurdity of these fake news reached such a high level that even top NATO and Pentagon generals had to refute them. So, at a congressional hearing, the commander of United States European Command and Supreme Allied Commander Europe, U.S. Army General Christopher Cavalli, officially stated that Russian combat aviation suffered minimal losses in the zone of a special military operation. Moreover, the American general also acknowledged that the Russian military aviation, missile forces, and electronic warfare systems have not only not lost their combat potential, but even become much stronger. Christopher Cavalli also said that in 2 years of fighting, the Russian army had fully recovered and seized the initiative on the battlefield, and all this became possible thanks to the country's military-industrial complex, which significantly increased the production of ballistic missiles, tanks, and other types of weapons. The Russian army conducts very large-scale attacks on the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine throughout Ukraine every few days. These attacks are very massive, and are accompanied by the use of dozens of missiles of various types, U.S. Army General Christopher Cavalli said. At the same time, the Ukrainian army, despite unprecedented support from the West and all its fake statements about dozens of destroyed Russian planes, has failed to achieve even local successes on the battlefield. This confession of the U.S. Army general shocked many pro-Ukrainian Western experts and bloggers, who tried hard to believe the fake statements of representatives of the Ukrainian General Staff. Thus, U.S. Army General Christopher Cavalli, during his appearance at a congressional hearing, finally dispelled all the fake news about dozens of downed Russian planes. Meanwhile, on April 12, 2024, reputable Russian telegram channels, known for their numerous connections in the Russian military department, announced that active soldiers and officers of the French army have finally arrived in Ukraine. According to them, a unit from the 3rd Infantry Regiment of the French Foreign Legion in the amount of 100 soldiers and officers was transferred to the city of Sloviansk, Donetsk region. At the same time, it is reported that this is just the beginning and that very soon other units of the French army will also arrive in Ukraine. It is quite possible that they will be transferred to Odessa and even Kiev. Numerous witnesses also confirmed the arrival of the French military in Ukraine. According to them, French soldiers and officers are located in Sloviansk, at the military base of the 54th Separate Mechanized Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Moreover, the arrival of the first unit of the French army in Ukraine was also confirmed by Russian military expert Yuri Kotnak. According to him, the French Ministry of Defense has transferred a French army unit to Sloviansk, which will build the defense of this city around the perimeter, hoping to stop the advance of Russian troops. This French army unit consists of specialists in artillery reconnaissance, as well as officers who have extensive experience in the construction of defensive structures and fortified areas. At the moment, French soldiers and officers are moving around the city only accompanied by the fighters of Ukrainian special forces. At the same time, it is worth noting that the Russian military department has not yet officially confirmed or denied the arrival of the first unit of the French army in Ukraine. If these data are confirmed at the official level, then the armed clashes between the Russian and French armies will simply not be possible to avoid in Ukraine. Against this background, NATO representatives have already stated that in case of losses among French soldiers in Ukraine, the North Atlantic Alliance will not enter into direct confrontation with Russia.